This is part 2 of my reaction to every Jurassic Park / World Death ranked by stupidity by What Culture. Here we go.
Next up, Dennis and
Hold on. Okay.
Next up, Dennis Nedry, Jurassic Park. Dennis Nedry was very clearly an incredibly smart man. There weren't many people who could have built the systems that he built for the original Jurassic Park, flawed though they may have been. However, he was absolutely the architect of his own downfall. That's because it was Nedry, backed by Lewis Dodgson, who tried to steal 15 of InGen's dinosaur embryos. In order to go undetected, Nedry had to shut off some security systems, which on an island like this was just plain idiotic, but things
Yeah, it was.
unfortunately got even worse than that. After getting his hands on the embryos, Nedry had to make it to the dock quickly in order to get the cargo delivered to the boat and back to the mainland. But he managed to get himself lost. Yes, there was the torrential rain as part of a brutal storm, but surely on such a tight time frame and with so much at stake, the man would have gone out of his way to familiarize himself with the roads. Then there's the fact that he created the security systems for these dinosaurs, but like too many involved in both Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, he made kind of no effort to actually learn much about them. Had he the slightest knowledge of what a Dilophosaurus could do to him, he probably would have
Here we go again with the weird pronunciations. He said Dilophosaurus. It's pronounced Dilophosaurus. Dilophosaurus.
run immediately instead of trying to distract it with a stick, comforted by the fact that it wasn't as big as a T-Rex. Next up, Rain Delacourt, Jurassic World Dominion. Rain Delacourt was something of a minor character in Jurassic World Dominion, who left a pretty big fingerprint on the events overall. It was he who kidnapped Maisie Lockwood for Lewis Dodgson by way of Santos, and was thus the reason that Owen and Claire found themselves in Malta to begin with. They had followed Rain to the dinosaur black market before realizing that Maisie had in fact been sent away to Italy. This was found out by Owen by way of something of an intense interrogation of Rain in Malta as the two dinosaurs chomped on his arms. As the former chased the latter through the black market carnage, Delacourt attempted to distract his pursuer by releasing two huge carnivores in the Allosaurus and the Carnotaurus. They didn't distract Owen.
Okay, those were the names that I guess he did pronounce correctly for once. They sound pretty much the same as I pronounce them and the rest of fans pronounce them. So give you credit on that.
Too much though, and they didn't have time to. Instead, they turned their attention straight to Delacourt as the closest meat to them before starting to snap at each other and heading out into the streets. And so instead of assisting in his escape, they actually knocked Rain into the fighting pit where he was quickly ripped apart by three smaller dinosaurs. It should
Yeah, that was a pretty brutal death, not gonna lie.
probably go without saying, but apparently someone needed to tell Rain Delacourt that letting loose some hulking carnivores like these probably wasn't a great idea. Next up, Peter Ludlow, The Lost World Jurassic Park. Had John Hammond perished back in 1993, as he did in the original novel, the fact that he was the one who brought the dinosaurs back to life in the first place probably would have guaranteed him a top 5 place on this list. His successor as head of InGen
Yeah, if he didn't survive the movie, that is, of course.
operations, though not quite on the same scale, is in a similar boat though. Peter Ludlow was killed by a Tyrannosaurus Rex on the mainland, but guess whose great idea it was to bring the dinosaurs to San Diego in the first place?
His.
Ludlow essentially discounted anything that Ian Malcolm said about the original park and began to work on his idea for bringing Jurassic Park to California. It was a bad idea for Hammond to try and build a park 80 miles off the coast of Costa Rica, but for Ludlow to try again and on the mainland was just unfathomable. It was the worst idea in the long, sad history of bad ideas, as Ian Malcolm put it. So his death was his own doing anyway, but the fact that he willingly entered where the T Rex was and tried to threaten and intimidate the juvenile was a surefire way to make sure he suffered a gruesome and grisly a death as anyone could have imagined. Next up, Eli Mills, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. What is it about money that turns people in the Jurassic Park franchise into idiots? They have the
I mean, that's literally what Jurassic Park is all about, to be honest. I mean, what do you mean, what is it? I mean, it wouldn't be a Jurassic Park movie without at least one person in it that's evil and corrupt and is just in it and is just doing this for the money, you know?
proverbial dollar signs in their eyes at the prospect of peddling dinosaurs in some way, but seem to forget that these dinosaurs are killing machines beyond the control of mere mortals. John Hammond was guilty of it, as were Peter Ludlow, Martin Krebs, and the villain of Fallen Kingdom, Eli Mills. The latter was arguably worse, though, as he brought the dinosaurs to the mainland to try and auction them off to the highest bidder, even disregarding the dangers of simply transporting the beasts from the island to the mainland, kicking off a whole new arms race between some of the richest and most dangerous people in the world was ill-advised to say the least. Of course, things never got that far though, because control was lost almost immediately. As Eli attempted to flee the Lockwood mansion where the auction was being held, he was eaten by the T Rex before he could even get into a car. It shouldn't be surprising at this point, but anyone who tries to control the dinosaurs like this is always going to suffer a similar fate.
Yep.
Next up, Cooper, Jurassic Park 3. In Jurassic Park 3, Cooper was part of the team put together by Udesky to land on Isla Sorna in order to look for Paul Kirby's son, Eric. They had been on the island no more than a few minutes, though, before they realized just what a bad idea it was. The crew went to the island on the basis that they could simply set up a perimeter to keep themselves safe from some of the greatest predators in the history of the planet. Cooper was then, unsurprisingly, eaten by the Spinosaurus in a death that was caused by equal parts stupidity and arrogance. Next up, Nash, Jurassic Park 3. There's not really actually a lot to say about Nash that wasn't already said about Cooper. They were
Exactly, because his death comes right after Cooper's.
part of the same team with the same stupid idea on Isla Sorna. He at least managed to get back onto the plane after the Spinosaurus
Oh, thankfully, he pronounced Isla Sorna right, because that's how it's pronounced. Soul side note, though.
attacked though, but not in enough time to properly take off and avoid being eaten himself. Next up, the fishing boat Jurassic World Dominion. At the beginning of Jurassic World Dominion, in a similar way to how Fallen Kingdom ended, there were several shots that established how life was now that dinosaurs were out in the wild. And one of them showed what happened when a Mosasaurus met a fishing boat out in the open ocean. Yes, the fisherman did have a job to do, just like they did before the dinos were let loose, but InGen only had one Mosasaurus. Surely then there was plenty of space in the seven seas to fish where this Leviathan couldn't have been to attack. Next up, the InGen contractors, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. So, here's the scenario. You're trying to escape from a mansion currently housing a large number of dinosaurs, many of which are ruthless killers. You begin to hear a rumble from inside that sounds like it could be a herd of said dinosaurs heading towards you. My question is, at this point, would you run like hell to get to safety, or just stand around like an idiot and wait to see exactly which kind of dinosaur was about to either eat you or stomp you to death? While most would probably go with the former, the two InGen contractors who were helping Eli Mills escape the Lockwood mansion opted dumbly for the latter. And for their lapse in judgment, one was carried off and dropped from a great height by a pteranodon, and the other was trampled underfoot. Next up, Nina.
Did you just call it a pteranodon? Yeah, he did. Um, I'm sorry if I keep pausing to correct the pronunciation, but hey, that's literally my job. Kind of. Yeah. It's pronounced pteranodon. Or let me just hear how he said it.
Only for the latter. And for their lapse in judgment, one was carried off and dropped from a great height by a pteranodon.
Pteranodon. It's pteranodon. Pteranodon.
And the other was trampled underfoot. Next up, Nina, Jurassic World Rebirth. When the Indominus Rex escaped from its containment at Jurassic World, it was able to camouflage itself against the trees to stay hidden. Similarly, the raptors and the T-Rex, to a degree, were able to conceal themselves well enough to attack without first being seen. This was also something one of the Spinosaurs was able to achieve in Jurassic World Rebirth, though not through any special ability or particular skill. Instead, the huge animal was allowed to attack undetected simply because its ultimate victim wasn't paying enough attention. After the Spinosaurs and the Mosasaurus attacked Zora's team, the survivors made a panicked mad scramble for dry land. Nina, one of the crew brought along by Duncan, made it safely onto the beach, but was ultimately attacked and killed by a Spinosaurus that was lying on the sand.
Poor Nina.
Now, the dinosaur, as mentioned, wasn't using any camouflage techniques, it was just a similar color to the rocks around it.
Right. Yeah, and poor Nina. She was just like one of those background characters that had literally no point in the story at all. Like she was just one of those characters that was just there so they can be killed off. So they can be killed off.
Sure, the audience could be tricked, but from the angle that Nina approached the beach, she would surely have been able to notice that this specific pile of rocks had a head and some pretty gnarly teeth. Nobody, of course, is ever going to be in this situation in real life, but if they were, you'd like to think that they would notice a 15-foot-tall dinosaur just snoozing on the beach. Next up, Enrique Cardosa, Jurassic Park 3. In the Lost World Jurassic Park, the owner of the boat taking Ian, Malcolm and co. to Isla Sorna knew not to get too close to the island. There was something of a mythology around the string of islands that Sorna was a part of, known locally as the Five Deaths. In Jurassic Park 3, however, on the complete other end of the spectrum, Enrique Cardosa operated Dinosaur, a company that brought people to Isla Sorna and had them parasail to try and see the dinosaurs that lived there. One of these is an example of a smart person, and the other is not. We'll let you guess who's who. When Enrique and his co-captain were eaten by something in the water, they couldn't have possibly anyone else to blame other than themselves. After all, why put yourself in ridiculous danger like that? They said they were going to get their customers close, but not too close, but were too dumb to realize that they were already way too close by the time they even said those words. Next up, Ben Hildebrand of Jurassic Park 3. If the people who ran the dinosaur business were stupid, what about those who paid them good money to take them on such an unnecessarily dangerous trip? Ben Hildebrand not only put his life in danger, but also the life of his stepson by going on an idiotic parasailing trip to a dinosaur-inhabited island. After the
Exactly.
two men on the boat were killed, with Ben and Eric still in the air, they released themselves before they crashed and essentially parachuted onto Isla Sorna with no food, no supplies, and no real hopes for survival. The fact that Eric stayed alive long enough to be rescued 8 weeks later was nothing short of a miracle, but Ben wasn't quite so lucky. He was dead before he could even get out of the tree that he landed in. Next up, Eli Mills.
I know it's crazy, and if you look closely, hold on. If you look closely at Ben, it looks like he's wait, let me turn off the subtitles for a second. If you look closely, you'll notice he's missing his legs. So it's possible that something ate his legs too.
That he landed in. Next up, Eli Mills' guards, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. It feels as though this should be a given, but more characters in the Jurassic franchise are proving that apparently it is not. But the core rule should be that if there are dinosaurs on the loose, you should get the hell out of the vicinity as quickly as possible. There are a few culprits, of course, that have ignored this solid advice, though only 1 or 2 of them were punished with their lives. While the dinosaurs were escaping and running riot throughout the basement of Lockwood Estate in Fallen Kingdom, Claire Owen and Eli Mills decided this would be the perfect time to have a discussion about how exactly Maisie was created. She herself was there with her future guardians, while Mills was flanked by a guard on either side. Just as he was explaining that Benjamin Lockwood cloned his daughter Charlotte, the Indoraptor ran past and ate both the guards in one fell swoop. Arguably, you could understand Mills's want to try and get Maisie back from Owen and Claire, but it just wasn't worth the risk posed by the Raptor, and if those soldiers weren't strongly advising him to keep moving, then honestly, what the hell was the point of them in the first place? Next up, InGen's private security team, Jurassic World. What Owen Grady achieved in his bond with Blue and the other Velociraptors was something incredible, but was always going to be exploited. Having the most dangerous creatures in the history of the world able to follow orders was always going to attract the interest of people like Vic Hoskins.
Yep.
He wanted to bring Owen's skills and transfer them onto military applications, and he got his chance to put his theory into action when the powers that be were desperate to bring down the Indominus Rex. They actually free the Raptors to try and bring down that beast that, as it turned out, ended up being part Raptor itself. Now, it would have been a bad enough decision to let them loose at the best of times, and it was idiotic that nobody knew what the Indominus was even made up of to begin with. Add those two things together, and this plan was always going to end badly. The Raptors immediately looked to the Indominus as their new alpha, and to the surprise of absolutely no one, turned on Hoskins' team and did what they did best. Out in the wild like that, they didn't stand a chance. And speaking of, next up, Vic Hoskins, Jurassic World. The same decision that killed Hoskins' team ultimately came back to bite the man who made said decision in the first place, Hoskins himself. With the Raptors free, no one was safe, and Blue ultimately showed Vincent D'Onofrio's character why he was so wrong. He had already seen his team slaughtered, but was still undeterred from using dinosaurs as weapons. However, when he came face to face with the raptor he thought he could control, his attempts to calm it down went like you would expect. It turns out that saying easy boy to a hungry raptor with prey in its sights doesn't make a scrap of difference. Who knew? Next up,
Yeah, who knew?
Ken Wheatley's Soldier, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Continuing the time-honored cinematic tradition of having an expert at hand and then completely ignoring every single thing they say in Fallen Kingdom was Ken Wheatley. The man in charge of getting dinosaurs off Isla Sorna didn't care what Owen had to say about Blue, despite him literally being the authority on velociraptors, specifically this one. So, just as Blue was beginning to trust Owen, one of Wheatley's soldiers shot the animal without waiting for the signal as per Owen's instructions, and from then on, she was in defense mode. The next person that she saw point a gun at her may or may not have been the first one that shot her, but she was taking no chances. Blue attacked and killed him, as would be expected. Trying to get
Yeah.
Blue off the island was a bad idea to begin with, but they might have had a chance of success had they just followed Owen's lead. Instead, the expert to end all experts was ignored, and a man was killed. Next, InGen soldiers.
Total side note, I love the music that's playing in the background. I feel like I've heard that from somewhere else, whether it's another YouTube video or a movie. I don't know. Let me know. Somebody better let me know what it's from. But yeah, let's continue.
Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. There is naturally a lot of stupidity on this list. A lot of people got themselves killed by doing indefensibly idiotic things. Then, though, there are those that couldn't do much about what happened to them, and this entry features a little bit of both. When Zia was confronted by one of Eli Mills's InGen goons, she released Blue. Unlike how Rain Delacourt was punished when he released two big old predators in Malta, though, Zia made sure she was protected by the gate of Blue's containment. Within seconds, the raptor was toying with the InGen soldier, essentially playing with her food. Then a second came along, voluntarily taking on Blue instead of getting the hell out of there as quickly as he could, and he was knocked on the ground by Blue's tail without her even looking, and then, of course, suffered the same fate as his colleague. You can't say that the first casualty here strictly couldn't do anything about
Yeah, and doesn't those things blow up afterwards? I think it does.
his fate because he did choose to be at that mansion on that day, and he was aggressive towards Zia. However, once face to face with Blue, the writing was on the wall. But the second soldier who went out of his way to go one-on-one with a velociraptor, well, that's entirely a different story. Next up, the Submarine Explorers Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. A big part of the problem with InGen bringing dinosaurs back from extinction was that they had nowhere near enough respect for the creatures in question. It's a common theme throughout this list, and of course, is something that Ian Malcolm was very vocal about throughout the entire franchise. Not only did they assume that
Yeah.
they could control the dinosaurs, but they did so without even researching them properly. Hell, in the original novel, Dr. Henry Wu didn't even know the names of the dinosaurs that he was bringing back to life. This lack of respect and research didn't just end with those in charge, though. At the beginning of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, a team was sent into Jurassic World to find the skeleton of the Indominus Rex. One of the submarine crew was at least nervous about being eaten by something in the water, but the other said that anything that was there before would have been long dead by now. Of course, they
Alexa, shut up. Sorry, my machine was just talking for a second.
was swiftly eaten by a Mosasaurus who had indeed survived. However, had they even the most basic facts about the beast, they would have known the dangers that they were heading into, as Dr. Loomis confirmed in Rebirth that the Mosasaurus would typically have a lifespan of well over a century. Yet here they were, a matter of months later, based on the timeline of Camp Cretaceous, assuming that it would have already died based on pretty much absolutely nothing. Next, Jack, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. The two people in the submarine weren't the only ones sent to retrieve the
Speaking of Camp Cretaceous, how come you haven't included any Camp Cretaceous deaths on this list? I feel like you should.
Indominus Rex DNA from the remnants of
Maybe there will be, but so far they haven't.
Jurassic World. There had to be someone on land to open the gates for them and then shut it when they were ready to leave. This man was Jack, who was ultimately chased off the end of the pier by the park's.
And again, this scene was featured in Camp Cretaceous from a different angle, so I guess this is technically a Camp Cretaceous death, but who knows?
Tyrannosaurus Rex. He was miraculously able to grab onto a ladder hanging down from a helicopter, allowing him to climb to safety. For now. That's because, while yes, he did get out of the reach of the T-Rex, he stupidly decided not to take the hint and then actually climb as quickly as possible to safety as he could. That's because he wasn't yet out of harm's way. And considering that just seconds earlier he had lost contact with the submarine, you might be forgiven for thinking that he wouldn't have immediately forgotten about the impending danger in the water. Instead of climbing, then he hung onto the ladder for a little bit longer, almost taunting the T-Rex and laughing about how he was almost killed. Then he was eaten whole by the Mosasaurus when there was absolutely no reason for him not to get to the safety of the chopper as soon as physically possible. Next, the Asset Containment Unit Jurassic World. When the Indominus Rex escaped from its captivity, Simon Masrani believed that the park's asset containment unit could apprehend the beast, even though Claire had already explained that it had grown much bigger than anticipated. The truth was that they were always in no way prepared for their task. 10 members of the ACU initially went out into the wild to take down the Rex, though any chance they might have stood went out the window at Masrani's insistence to use non-lethal weapons. People had already died at this point, by the way, and every one of the 20,000 plus visitors were now at risk, but he refused to have the dinosaur killed. When he had spoken to Claire about the park earlier in the film, before anything was going wrong, he put on the facade that he only cared about the visitor experience and not the silly money. John Hammond never once mentioned cost to him, he said. However, when things got real, he was more concerned with protecting his $26 million investment in the dinosaur. Apparently, human life isn't worth that much, and aside from risking literally every human on the island, as well as all of his other expensive assets, sending those 10 people down to take out the Indominus Rex with non-lethal weapons was as good as signing their death warrants himself. Owen
Yeah.
could see it coming a mile off, but no one listened, and they just never stood a chance. Next up, Bobby Atwater, Jurassic World Rebirth. The majority of people on the mission in Jurassic World Rebirth were there to bring back the dino DNA and potentially save lives, though there was undeniably a monetary factor as well. However, Bobby did a poor job at hiding just how excited he was at the prospect of actually hurting the dinosaurs. He was enthused by the weapons that they had and what they would do far beyond the realms of pure self-defense, and when the Spinosaurs did come toward the board, he couldn't break them out fast enough. Bear in mind, these are the same dinos that saw Reuben's board and then left them alive to tell the tale, and there was no reason to think that the same might not happen a second time. Instead, Bobby exposed himself on the side of the boat, not like that, to fire off his weapon, not like that, at the beasts, damaging and deterring them as much as he would
Not like that.
have with a water pistol or something else, not like that, in his hands. Unsurprisingly, he was the only casualty of that attack. Everyone else made it to the island in one piece, though Nina didn't last too much longer, as we've explained, and had he just been patient and not been so determined to fire on the dinosaurs to begin with, he may have survived as well. This guy played way too much 2-Rock, if you ask me. Next up, Dieter, the Lost World Jurassic Park. Plenty of people on this list have been killed because of their distinct lack of respect for dinosaurs, but this character took things to another level entirely. This wasn't just disrespecting arguably the most dominant species the world has ever seen, this was going out of his way to needlessly antagonize them. As the title may suggest, Isla Sorna was just that in the Lost World Jurassic Park, a lost world. An island of dinosaurs left to flourish on its own without any human interference, and as such, even the smaller creatures like the Compies showed no fear when faced with InGen soldiers. And this seemed to puzzle Dieter, who was at one time Roland's number 2 on the mission. After being told that the dinosaurs had no reason to fear man, he shocked one with his taser. Though this may have painted something of a target on his back, it wasn't the dumbest thing he did that led to his own death. That's because as the group took a break, he decided to go off for a toilet break by himself, which is idiotic in its own right, considering
Yeah, he didn't have to walk like a mile away just to pee.
the situation. He told Carter where he was going, admittedly, but didn't wait for a response and didn't check to see whether he was heard, which of course he wasn't. When the dinos
Yep, that too.
attacked him, then he literally had no one but himself to blame. Next up, Ken Wheatley, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. For every rich idiot wanting to play God, there's always someone with a gun who is just as delusional, thinking that they can control the dinosaurs in a more literal sense. Whether it's Vic Hoskins, Roland Tembo, or Cooper, they all found themselves just as out of their depths as each other. This type of thug in Fallen Kingdom was Ken Wheatley, who was in charge of the operation to remove the dinosaurs and bring them back to the mainland. And in fairness, he did a better job of this than in The Lost World, but he still made a fatal mistake. Whenever Wheatley took down a dinosaur, he took one of their teeth as something of a trophy. With a literal handful of the things, he wanted to add one of the Indoraptors. So he shot the monster with a couple of tranquilizers and then went to get what he felt he had earned. The problem? Well, like most people, he didn't know anything about these beasts, including...
Yeah, this guy definitely was pretty stupid. Especially the way he was yanking out dinosaurs' teeth. That's just wrong. And I'm glad he got what he deserved.
what kind of dose would put the raptor down. He voluntarily entered the cage of this abomination to grab its tooth and was, of course, ripped to shreds.
And that's genius because you could see it coming. Like the Indoraptor was a pretty smart monster, if you ask me. It didn't like it played dead or not play dead. It faked it being knocked out only for it to bite his arm off. That was incredible.
Even if the tranquilizer had worked to begin with, though, which it obviously didn't,
No.
he would have had no idea how long the effects would have lasted, so either way you spin it, this was just arrogant and dumb. Next, the Paddock Supervisor Jurassic World. The escape of the Indominus Rex has been referenced several times already throughout this list, but here is the moment itself, taking its place right near the very top. And that's because there is a magnitude of stupidity involved here on multiple levels. First, they had enough trouble predicting the behavior of real dinosaurs, or as real as they could make them, but to splice two species together was just asking for trouble. They didn't understand the Indominus Rex, they didn't know everything that it could do, and it grew much bigger than they ever expected it to. A containment breach was always going to happen, but still, they were woefully unprepared despite knowing it was coming. When the dinosaur somehow managed to evade the park's thermal detectors, Owen and the paddock supervisor entered the habitat on the assumption that it had already escaped. On the way back to the control room, Claire asked Lowry to pinpoint the Rex's exact location,
Lowry? It's Larry.
which confirmed that it was still where it was supposed to be. The two men who had entered the paddock were in there as well as the Indominus, which ultimately resulted in the supervisor's death, as well as the escape of the dinosaur, as the doors couldn't shut in time to get them both out safely. But why didn't Claire just ask Lowry to pinpoint the location before anyone entered the paddock? It took literally 2 seconds, and not only did doing this too late result in the immediate death of the supervisor, but every other life lost on that day could ultimately be traced back to this horrible decision. Next, William's
Yeah, absolutely.
Jurassic World Rebirth. People have died in the Jurassic franchise thanks to a plethora of different circumstances, but only one can boast having their life ended thanks to littering. The opening scenes of
Oh yeah. I think we all saw this coming. And it's I'm glad and I feel like most Jurassic World or Park films open with like a an on or off screen death. Like they open with a kill from a dinosaur. So I'm glad Rebirth continued this tradition.
Rebirth showed exactly how the island came to be abandoned, and it's thanks to one lazy man and his snacks, specifically a Snickers bar.
Stickers.
As Williams entered through the incredibly sophisticated security systems to get into the D-Rex area, he finished his Snickers and then dropped the wrapper on the floor. Bad guy. Bad move, don't litter, kids. This then got sucked up into the system, causing a failure and automatic reboot, which ultimately led to the monstrous beast getting free and eating the littering culprit alive. So yeah, how many levels of stupid are here? Not only was Williams happy eating in what was clearly a sterile environment, but he had no problem just throwing his rubbish on the ground. The fact that such a small piece of rubbish could ultimately cause an entire system failure is also kind of insane, and something straight out of a Final Destination movie. Arguably worst of all, though, with monsters like they had there on the island, who the hell would sign off on having an automatic reboot that could unexpectedly shut off every security system without warning? Up next, Dr. Burke.
I know. The fact that they have it like that is so out of place.
The Lost World Jurassic Park. It's been said so many times on this list that too many of these characters didn't respect the power and majesty of the dinosaurs, and it's true. Hell, it's kind of the whole point, at least in the original movie, but that doesn't mean that respect would have spared many lives. Take Dr. Burke, the long-haired paleontologist hanging around with InGen's crew in the Lost World. He knew how
That's him. That's Dr. Burke. I was wondering who Dr. Burke is. Now I remember.
dangerous these beasts were, and yet here he is at the very top of this.
Also, fun fact: he was based off of a. I heard he was based off of a real paleontologist. I forget his name, but he was I think he is. I think it is Dr. Burke, or at least it was something close to that. That the actual person he's based on was named after, and he the person he was based on, he was the first person to suggest that the T-Rex was a predator. That's what at least that's what I heard.
List. When the T-Rex chased the crew through the jungle, those who weren't smushed or killed in the long grass took shelter in a small alcove behind a waterfall. The Rex was close enough to lick them, but couldn't quite get its enormous jaws at them. It was clear then that they were safe so long as they stayed still, at least for the moment. Then Dr. Burke felt a snake land on his shoulder and, in trying to shake the thing off, waltzed straight into the T-Rex's mouth. People don't like snakes, I understand. I don't either, and it's understandable not wanting one.
I personally don't. I personally like snakes. I don't understand why so many people don't like snakes. Sure, some are venomous, but I have no reason to be afraid of them. Like like snakes are such beautiful creatures, and either way, I think his death was pretty stupid. If I saw a snake, I would have just thrown it off of me or something. I don't know.
underneath your shirt. But if the choice is that or being ripped to shreds by the most powerful predator that ever lived, you bet your damn ass that snake is allowed to wriggle its way all over me. You can do whatever the hell it wants. Whoa, that was a big one. That's our list on the dumb Jurassic Park deaths ranked by stupidity. And if you want more content like this, click one of the videos on the screen right now.
All right, guys. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed part two. If you did, be sure to like, uh, possibly share with a friend, and if you're new, subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you in the next video. Cheers. Bye bye.